Before the white man came, the O'odham people were self-efficient. O'odham people were very physical, because they were working. They had to work for their food. They had to work to survive. They went hunting. They had to maybe walk for miles to look for rabbit or deer. Or, they had to go to a specific area by foot to pick cholla buds or saguaro fruit or mesquite beans, and they were moving, they were healthy, but also in O'odham culture, you ran, we were runners. This is our culture. This was the O'odham himatag. For O'odham people, the rain ceremonies were the most important ceremonies because they're the ones that were bringing the rain to water the plants, to water the desert, that would bring life to the desert. When the white man came, we were told what to do. We were being taken away from the fields. The children were being thrown into boarding schools. And there weren't people there to do the ceremonies, to have, I guess, a sense of ownership or a sense of carrying the tradition alive. Well, one of the big changes that happened for O'odham culture, especially relating to food and farming, was the groundwater that was being pumped out from the outside. Farmers on the borders of the reservation pumping for their fields, so they were depleting the aquifers. So, other water has been taken that affected that village and the farms, definitely affected the health of the O'odham people because they weren't getting the foods that they grew from those farms. And when you took that away, the only thing that was available was probably store food, flour, lard, and sugar. That wasn't healthy. Well, there was a bigger loss than just, the health. It affected the culture. The O'odham himatag, that was the biggest loss I see. When everybody was taken away, a lot of the ceremonies weren't performed. When you're planting the seeds, when you're preparing the soil, there's ceremonies and songs and prayers that you do. And none of that was performed because, there wasn't going to be a crop. There wasn't anybody there to plant. Things weren't collected, it was not only the food, it was the medicine, a lot of the herbs that the O'odhams used from the desert, things like that, and it just snowballed into what we're dealing with now.
Doing that genetic research, it's fine, but it doesn't create solutions. It disempowers people because it says there's something wrong with you rather than that there's something that you can do. And it also disempowers the community and says that the solution is really in the hands of a laboratory and of the medical community. And what we're saying is no, the solution is in the hands of the individuals and families and villages of the O'odham community.
Well, we started Tohono O'odham Community Action about 10 years ago, the summer of '96. The idea of TOCA was to bring back a lot of the O'odham himatag to the community, to have a program that could invite elders to come and share their knowledge and share their culture with anybody who was willing to learn. 4 programs started. We have the Basket Weavers organization. We have the Cultural Foods Project. We have the Elderly Youth Outreach Program and the Arts and Culture Program. And all those programs focus around the O'odham culture and intertwine. We're hitting all those important elements in the culture. It's not just the food, it's the language, it's the ceremonies, it's that process of O'odham life. I think it's really important for the ideas and the actions to come from the community because it gives a sense of ownership, a sense of being in charge. We rely on the community. They're the ones who tell us that they need this. They're the ones who tell us that there's certain things that you need to focus on or do. So when you have a social gathering, you're bringing everybody from the community, not only your family, but the whole community. And if you're working on a project, like say you're having a planting day and you need people to go out and help plant the seeds in the ground, you're building that, again, ownership and that sense of belonging, that sense of pride. I think over the 10 years we've proven to the community that, we're here and we can't go away because we're actually part of the community. Everybody that works at TOCA are from the community. We're O'odham people working to keep our culture alive, and people see that. How we got this land for our farm, our first farm, was it came out of trying to find a way how to pay respects and honor my grandfather because he was a farmer. And at that time, when TOCA started working to bring back a lot of the traditional foods, we thought about land, and that meant us going to the family and getting the family's blessing. We sat the family down and we actually talked to them about them giving us this land, you know, to do our first farming for TOCA. And we sat there and we actually gave the whole family our spiel about TOCA and what the benefits were, and you know, they liked it, and they all agreed that my grandfather would have liked that. We actually had to bring my grandmother out to actually map out the area. We pretty much just spent the day out here following my grandmother. Once my grandmother would remember things, my aunts would jump in and say, yeah, and then stories started coming out. I had a camera, so it was really nice that I actually got it documented, but I didn't think at the time we all knew what we were getting ourselves into and how much of an impact it would have made on our family, but also in TOCA and the community. We always say at TOCA, you know, we look back to the past to create solutions for the future. That's what we're doing, and after 10 years, it's definitely working. Not all of the culture will get back, but you know, if we keep going and learning as much as we can, we're keeping it alive. And it's definitely helping us bring back the culture, bring back the ceremonies, the language, but also bring back our health.